Here's what you need to know on Sunday, September 23, 15 days before the Washington Redskins visit the New Orleans Saints. Talking points: the wide receivers will have opportunities. It's a copycat league, but the Packers' defense is unlikely to emulate the soft cover 2 scheme that the Colts used to frustrate Alex Smith and the wide receivers last week. Green Bay plays a more aggressive defense with more blitzing and man coverage, and they aren't going to change that up today because of what the Colts did. This should give Josh Doctson, Paul Richardson, and Jamison Crowder some opportunities to get chunk plays. It won't be easy, but the chances will be there for the taking. Watch the Packers' running game. The Packers don't run the ball very often. The last 2 years they were 29th and 27th in the league in rushing attempts, and so far this year they are 27th. Why run the ball when you have a weapon like Aaron Rodgers? Well, they are effective when they do run, with their average per rushing attempt ranking in the top 10 in both 2016 and 2017. It doesn't always matter. The last 4 times they rushed for over 100 yards in a game, they have an overtime win and 3 losses. It must be noted that Rodgers played in only one of those games, so we know what makes the difference there. A better day for Peterson? All week long I have been talking about the matchup between the Packers' stout 3-man front of nose tackle Kenny Clark and ends Mike Daniels and Mohamed Wilkerson against the Redskins' patchwork interior offensive line. I think that the Packers have the edge here, and that could mean some tough sledding for Adrian Peterson. I still think that Peterson will be able to get outside some, and he should have a better day than the 11 carries for 20 yards he had against the Colts. The Redskins will need extended drives for touchdowns if they are going to win, and Peterson will need to be a part of it. Which way will the Redskins go? This Redskins team is an inconsistent bunch. It would not be surprising at all if they followed up their flat effort against the Colts with a solid performance against the Packers. I think the passing game will be sharper, and the defense will keep the Packers from being in third and short too often. Still, Rodgers will get his, and the Redskins will find themselves in a shootout. I pointed out earlier this week that it's hard to beat Green Bay if you don't score at least 30 points. The Redskins haven't done that since doing it back-to-back in weeks 10 and 11 last year. They lost both of those games to the Vikings and Saints. Maybe they can do it, and I think they'll make a run at it, but it will come up short. Packers 28, Redskins 24. Injury report: game status out, Apka, hamstring; Lauvao, calf, questionable; Harris, concussion; Richardson, shoulder; Brown, oblique. For the Packers, QB Aaron Rodgers, knee, questionable; Kevin King, groin, out. Full injury report. Here the agenda today: Redskins kickoff 12 noon, NBC Sports. Washington Redskins vs. Packers 1 p.m. Fox. Upcoming: Redskins at Saints, October 8, 15 days. Panthers at Redskins 21, Cowboys at Redskins 28. In case you missed it, here are your start and sit options for Week 3. Also, take a look at the Week 3 position-by-position rankings. Good luck out there. Quarterbacks start: Ryan Fitzpatrick vs. Steelers. Fitzmagic casts spells on opposing defenses in the opening 2 games as the journeyman passers set an impressive bar for all fantasy football players. This spotlight goes next level with a Monday night matchup against a Pittsburgh squad 0-1-1, seeking its first win. The Steelers enter Week 3 allowing the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks. There's certainly a chance Fitzpatrick turns back into a pumpkin, or at least the average QB he's largely been during his career, but momentum and matchup makes for a good opportunity. Sit Dak Prescott at Seahawks. Carson Wentz making his return to the field for the first time since last season's ACL injury is the obvious don't use call, but let's go down the PSA route. Even you blind Homer Dallas fans realize your guy should be glued to the bench, right? Actually, considering Prescott has 1 touchdown, 330 passing yards total through 2 games and limited receiver options, it's conceivable if not likely there are better options. Ryan Tannehill, Blake Bortles, on the waiver wire. Don't expect an uptick in production this week as Dallas plays guest in Seattle's first home game of the season. Running backs start: Giovanni Bernard at Panthers. Here comes a workload rise for Bernard with Joe Mixon, neat sidelined. Though a downgrade for the Bengals, fantasy owners shouldn't expect a noticeable drop. Bernard produced throughout his career when receiving ample touches, a scenario that happened Sunday. With at least 15 touches in Cincinnati's final 5 games last season, the dual threat had 11, 19, 13, 29 and 13 fantasy points in PPR formats. Even though Carolina is stout against the run, Bernard ranks a borderline RB1 in Week 3. Sit Chris Carson vs. Cowboys. There's a backfield split with rookie Rashad Penny occurring, a scenario frustrating for Carson owners who bought into the preseason hype. There's facing a Dallas defense that held Saquon Barkley to 28 yards on 11 carries last week. The rookie also had 14 receptions, of course. It might not be conceivable to bench Carson, depending on other options. Just don't get hyped for this matchup. Wide receivers start, Dante Pettis at Chiefs. This deep cut depends on whether Marquise Goodwin missed a second consecutive game. The 49ers face a Chiefs defense giving up gobs of aerial production through 2 games, including 4 touchdowns to wide receivers and a league-worst 40 receptions. Only 3 receptions on the season and just a 1 for 35 line last week, but Pettis scored a TD in the opener. If Goodwin plays and Pettis snaps drop yet you still seek a long shot play, consider Josh Doctson a hold-your-nose flyer. Washington is dealing with injuries at receiver. Tight end Jordan Reed only played half the snaps during the first 2 weeks. Green Bay is allowing the 4th most wide receiver production in PPR formats. Sit Demaryius Thomas at Ravens. Until proven otherwise, Thomas's reputation trumps reality. Emmanuel Sanders is the Denver receiver putting up quality numbers, 14 receptions for 231 yards versus 11 and 81 for Thomas. As Roto-World's Evan Silva notes, receivers are torching Baltimore's slot corner Tavon Young. The slot is where Sanders lines up often and where Broncos quarterback Case Keenum will look. Tight end start, O.J. Howard vs. Steelers. Either tight end in this matchup works for owners in need, but Howard's potential easily trumps Jesse James. 5 receptions for 150 yards and a touchdown in 2 games more than works, but is particularly impressive considering 6 total targets. The lack of balls thrown his way is a bit concerning, but the Steelers allowed the 5th most points to fantasy tight ends through 2 weeks. Good chance Tampa Bay gets Howard more involved. Sit Austin Seferian-Jenkins vs. Titans. Despite dealing with a core muscle injury, Seferian-Jenkins wasn't listed on Friday's injury report. That means he's available to face a Tennessee defense that allowed opposing tight ends 4 receptions for 51 yards over its first 2 games. There's always hope for a touchdown, but between ASJ's limited production, averaging 3 for 24, and the Titans' solid work, look elsewhere if possible. Defenses start, Cowboys at Seahawks. Russell Wilson has been sacked 12 times on the season and thrown 3 interceptions. Even if Seattle pulls off its first win of the season, Dallas defense should post solid fantasy numbers. Sit Chargers at Rams. One of these Los Angeles teams is allowing opposing defenses a mere 2.5 fantasy points. That team has Jared Goff at quarterback. The Chargers teed off on Buffalo last week. Things won't come nearly as easily against the NFC West favorite. After the Redskins signed receivers Michael Floyd and Breshad Perriman earlier this week, many wondered how long the team would carry 7 wide receivers on the 53-man roster. The answer turns out to be not very long at all. The Redskins have announced that they released Perriman today. He was a first-round draft pick of the Ravens in 2015 and was touted as a rare combination of size, 6'2", 215, and speed, 4.24 in the 40 at his pro day. But a variety of injuries derailed his career before it got started. Baltimore released him on September 1st and he was a free agent until the Redskins signed him on Monday. What this week amounted to was a 3-day competition between Floyd and Perriman for one roster spot. The Redskins liked Floyd, who has had a more productive NFL career than Perriman, and they made the move. Floyd is likely to be inactive tomorrow when the Redskins host the Packers. They then have a bye and we'll see if they can get him involved in the offense when they play the Saints on October 8th. As a corresponding move, the Redskins promoted running back Capri Bibbs from the practice squad to the 53-man roster. He was very close to making the team when they did the final roster cuts, but he was caught in a numbers game. He will take the running back spot vacated when Rob Kelly was moved to injured reserve earlier this week. Bibbs likely will join Floyd on the inactive list tomorrow. He is considered to be a third down back, and as long as Chris Thompson is healthy, Bibbs is unlikely to see much action. Updated at 4:50 p.m. More Redskins news.